is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another Superman and Lois review. This time I'm going to be talking about episode number 11. No Small Parts, I believe, is the name of the episode. And yeah, this was another pretty fantastic episode. It's kind of funny how the last three episodes have been. We've gone from, what I think was probably one of the best episodes of the series to the, last week's episode being like what was probably one of the worst episodes of the series to me. But now we come back here to a very, very solid episode, one that I actually remember seeing another YouTuber, I believe it was Pagey, who was talking about this episode, and he was mentioning how this episode to him kind of felt like a season finale, and I definitely get where he's coming from there. In terms of like the major plot lines that they have been kind of bringing up within this season, it feels like all that kind of gets wrapped up here in a very nice, neat little bow with just a couple of minor things that had been brought up earlier in the season that we knew about, only now really starting to take its shape. And I'll get to those at the very end of the review. But for now, let's start, with kind of the smaller things of the episode, then I'll slowly work my way up into like kind of the bigger moments, of course. But the first thing I do want to talk about is, of course, Sarah in this episode. Now, if you remember my previous episode, I was extremely harsh on her character specifically and just kind of the writing around her, and I think a big reason behind that is because to me it kind of felt like the episode was trying to say that Sarah was in the right 100% and Jordan was 100% like in the wrong, whereas to me I kind of felt like what Sarah did, which again inviting your socially awkward friend to a party and then leaving him in the corner, to me was kind of a dick move on Sarah's part. So it felt like to me that they were kind of like the episode, the writers of the show were kind of taking her side. Now, of course, I did try to make it clear that Jordan's behavior after that wasn't okay as well. Like, he was kind of being a baby about the whole thing, of course. But to me, it kind of felt like they were like the writers were just trying to say that Jordan was in the wrong. Now, watching this episode, I can see that was not the case, and I probably just misread what the writers were really trying to say in the previous episode, so that's more on me. I still don't think it was a good episode for the most part. I still think it was kind of one of the weaker episodes of the series, but regardless, I will admit that I kind of misread how it was meant to be represented, I think, because this episode, it really does kind of show Sarah feeling guilty about what happened in the previous episode, and even though she tries to apologize to Jordan for it, here Jordan is kind of being an asshole, trying to say that the only reason she's pretending to be sorry is because he saved her life in the previous episode, which I don't think is the case. I feel like Sarah is the kind of person that, it doesn't matter if you're Superboy saving her life from like a terrible accident, even if it's a mistake that she made within that accident, by drinking and driving. I don't think she's the kind that would, immediately go back on something she would say if she didn't mean it, even if you saved her life. I do think that she actually meant that apology. It wasn't just because Jordan saved her, so I do think Jordan was being a bit harsh in this episode. It's kind of funny. I'm like switching sides now. Now I'm a little more on Sarah's side, and mostly because of what we kind of see later on in the episode. We see that her depression has kind of returned. And we get both basically both of her parents working together as if they were still a married couple, which I actually really like. I do love that like Kyle and Lana are basically not enemies at all, even though they're a divorced couple, they still, can put, whatever grievances they have with each other aside in order to work together to be good parents for Sarah. They can, be the parents that Sarah needs them to be, especially when she really needs them. They're both definitely there for her. So the episode kind of, ends with neither one of them really knowing exactly what to do, because they know that Sarah's going through a hard time. None of them can really 100% relate to her, but they're doing their best. And I do like Kyle kind of relating his high school kind of story of, back when he was at a really dark place after losing his mother and, basically drinking a lot as a high schooler. It brought him to a dark place, and he's trying to make sure that Sarah doesn't go down a similar path, maybe not the same, because she's not really an alcoholic like Kyle was in high school, but she is definitely going down that depressing road that Kyle was at. So I do like both of them doing their best to try to kind of comfort her and be there for her the way parents should be. But this ends with them just kind of thinking that she needs a little more than just school, like in order to kind of keep herself like occupied, keep herself like, busy basically, which I do kind of agree to an extent. I do think that when it comes to high school, having an extracurricular activity of some sort, like whether it's a job or whether it's an after-school program or a sport, I do think it is really good for the mental health of a teenager. I'm not saying every person in high school should always do like, extracurricular activities. I'm just saying that it definitely helps with a lot of people, especially people dealing with mental issues. So, the solution of her kind of getting a job at the end, it's a good first step, to try to help her. It was either that or go back to therapy, which at this point, with how much Sarah kind of seems to really know about herself, I'm not really sure therapy is exactly what she needs at the moment. Like, I'm not saying that that's not me trying to say like, oh, therapy doesn't work or anything, but I'm saying with how her character has been written, she seems to be very confident in herself. And so when she's depressed, she seems to know exactly why she's depressed. So I don't think talking about it for her will really make too much of a difference. I could be wrong, but to me, I think having something to kind of keep her busy might be the better, part-time solution. But we'll see how that turns out later on with the show as it keeps going. The other thing that kind of happens with the Cushing family is Kyle finally learning the full truth about Superman, and he kind of reacts a way that I was sort of expecting him to. He kind of becomes a dick for a brief period of time, and basically kind of takes it all out on Chrissy. Basically, he has like all this kind of, even though he seems really excited at first to find out that Clark Kent is Superman, immediately once Clark like leaves the room, we see kind of a different side of Kyle, the more kind of, I guess you could say, humiliated, feeling very left out, being like one of the very few people in that circle that didn't know that Clark Kent was Superman. And even though the scene kind of plays it out as if he's just mad at Chrissy for basically making him seem stupid when he tried telling Chrissy that there was a superhero in Smallville, I do think that he wasn't just mad at Chrissy. I think the thing was he was just mad at the scenario, and he kind of just felt like no one trusted him. And I think that was the anger that he took out on Chrissy. I don't think he was actually just mad at her specifically. I think he was just mad about the situation. And he does, of course, at the end, I think helping Sarah really kind of helped him help himself pretty much, helped him kind of realize how much of a douchebag he was acting. So he does, of course, apologize to Chrissy, and the two of them seem to be on good terms at the end of the episode. But yeah, that's kind of some of the smaller things. The other, the first kind of big thing that happens that I want to talk about is, of course, with John and Natalie, because at this point, the Mannheims are all kind of on the run. They are all wanted by the government, of course, and that this unfortunately includes Mateo, because Mateo, as I mentioned in the previous episode, is now an accomplice. He did help give his mother the cure, which is what caused her to escape, which means now legally he is wanted just like his parents. And in the beginning of the episode, it kind of feels like his parents don't really care that they just destroyed their kid's future. And of course it's understandable why, like, I do defend Mateo in this situation. It's understandable why he did what he did. He had his parents kind of pressuring him to do the wrong thing, and it's really hard to say no to the people that have taught you right from wrong your entire life, and then them trying to tell you that this is that one circumstance where it's okay to break the law. And in doing so, of course, like I mentioned, they may have screwed up his entire future. John, of course, sees it as, he knew what he was getting into, so he is an accomplice, so he's just as guilty as them. But of course, Natalie doesn't see it that way. She sees him as a kid doing anything he can to, like, not lose his mother, which makes total sense. Again, I'm kind of like in the side of defending Mateo in this point. Like, don't get me wrong, yes, what he did was illegal, and it makes sense that there would be consequences for that, but you can't help but feel sorry for him, because what would any other kid kind of do in a situation similar to this? So they do butt heads a little bit about the situation, but what I do like is that it doesn't go too far between the two of them. There isn't anything that while they definitely disagree, I think by the end of the episode, they do come to a compromise that I'll get to later on, that I think kind of works out for everyone. And I do like that this doesn't kind of break the bond between Natalie and John. The two of them, they still have the loving father-daughter relationship, and their disagreement about Mateo doesn't like kind of break that. And I do like that John does kind of come around to Mateo being innocent by the end of the episode. Now, the big thing that happens, the first big thing, of course, this isn't the big thing in the episode, but the first big thing in the episode is, of course, Lois'S surgery. It's finally happening, and despite everything going down, the appointment was set, and Lois very much, I totally get this, okay? there are times where it's really hard to mentally motivate yourself to get something that you need to get done, even if it's something that is going to be a challenge. Whether or not it's something stupid like cleaning your bedroom, doing a big paper assignment, or trying to face something that you really don't want to face. There's a lot of mental preparation you kind of got to do for something like that, and I can't imagine how much mental preparation goes into a surgery like the one she's having. So despite everything going on, she really wants to go through with the surgery because she's kind of worried that with how much mental prep it took for her to get here, if she doesn't go through with the surgery, she may back out a different day if she doesn't do it that day. Now, something that happens also is Jordan, while he's at the hospital, with his mom, before the surgery, he starts to have a little bit of a panic attack, kind of like the ones that we would see him get in season 1 of the series. Now, this is kind of a common thing that you see in a lot of TV shows, where you always have one character visiting someone in the hospital, and something about seeing something about just being in the hospital just makes them extremely uncomfortable. And that's the case with Jordan here. He's very uncomfortable, seeing his mother the way he's seeing her in the hospital. So he needs like a quick moment of a panic attack, but this panic attack unlocks a new ability. He now has X-ray visions, and something I absolutely love about the way they show him unlocking this power is they show they show Jordan trying really hard to close his eyes and block out everything around him, but he's still able to see everything around him because of his X-ray visions. So he thinks he's unable to close his eyes, but then you have Jonathan there saying, "Your eyes are closed, dude." And it's not until Superman arrives where he finally kind of explains, "You've unlocked your X-ray vision." Now, of course, at first Jordan isn't happy about this, but Jonathan kind of puts into perspective. It's like, whenever I struggle, that's just it. I struggle. It's an obstacle I have to overcome, and that's just, I move on with my life. Whenever you struggle, you get to unlock a crazy new superpower, which I thought, was kind of a cool way to cheer Jordan up. Now, the surgery, of course, has some issues because Pia starts to lose complete control of her powers later on due to the cure, and this basically causes a huge blockout within the city. And even when the power comes back on, the doctors aren't 100% sure if it's safe to go through with the surgery. But again, because of how mentally prepared Lois Lane is for the surgery, she demands that she gets the surgery done right there, right now. And so it basically happens. The surgery happens. And now we'll talk about the Mannheims, because this, of course, was the biggest, most important thing of the episode, which is Pia trying to hold it together. But of course, us kind of slowly seeing that the cure, it's more of a temporary fix more than anything else. It's very much like when you have a small problem with your car, you take it to a very cheap mechanic and they do a half-assed solution to that car, but then suddenly when you have that issue again, it comes back 10 times worse. Well, that's what you get with Pia. Now you may be wondering, well, she's dying. What can be 10 times worse than dying? Well, in the case of Pia, it's dying and taking out a lot of people with you, because her powers become very unstable. And there's even a scene that almost felt like something straight from The Boys, where basically she accidentally kills one of Bruno's henchmen with her powers by completely exploding him using her sonic waves. And obviously it's not as graphic as The Boys. You don't see any guts or anything, any pieces of human flesh flying anywhere, but you do see him pop, and you do see the bloodstains on the wall. So I thought that was a pretty intense, slightly funny kind of moment. It was slightly funny in the sense that you didn't expect to see a moment like that on Superman and Lois. Part of me kind of wishes they were a little bit more graphic with it. Again, kind of similar to The Boys, but I totally get why they weren't, because this is, of course, mostly, for the most part, a family show. So I totally get it. It would have been kind of cool is all I'm saying. But that being said, things that start to get a lot worse for her, and it's not just affecting the people around her close to her, but it's literally affecting everyone in the city. So eventually Superman has to leave the hospital in order to try to go and stop Pia. Not sure how he's going to do that, But it's not until he gets to Pia when he like fully understands the fact that she is dying and that there is nothing he can really do to save her. The only thing he's able to do at that point is tell her that it's okay to let go. So Pia does let go. Superman flies her into the sky where she eventually, gives into the illness and, eventually just dies in Superman's arms. Superman brings her to Bruno Mannheim, and we have what I thought was a really awesome moment where before Pia dies, she whispers something into Superman's ears. Now, we as the audience don't hear what she says, but immediately my first thought is that she told Superman some vital information like, oh, Bizarro is underneath the building or something like that, But in fact, what she actually says to him is, I want you to tell Bruno that I'll always be with him forever and always, which, if you had been like kind of listening throughout the entire season, that seems to be kind of their way of saying I love you, is they always seem to follow it up with forever and always. So seeing this moment here when Superman brings Pia to Bruno and then, tells Bruno her last words were, I'll be with you forever and always. I love seeing this being what kind of brings Bruno Mannheim down to tears. And eventually we get a final scene where Bruno Mannheim confesses to everything to the DOD in exchange for Mateo getting a full pardon and the guarantee that John Henry Irons will look after him, which I kind of look forward to seeing, because I gotta imagine that's gotta be like every parent's worst nightmares, is having their kid along with their kid's like partner living with them like in the same house, especially when they're still in high school. So I look forward to seeing if that kind of goes anywhere. Again, we only have 2 more episodes before the season ends, so it's hard to say how much we'll get to see from this dynamic, but I definitely look forward to seeing it regardless. Now, one of the other things, of course, that I mentioned earlier was the surgery, and thankfully the surgery goes well. Lois is no longer, as far as we know, she no longer has the cancer. Although, of course, if you know anything about cancer, it could come back at any moment. Hopefully not. Hopefully this is the end of the cancer stuff, as far as we know. But we'll have to definitely wait and see where they go with that going forward. Now, there were, of course, a couple of after credit moments, or I say that, but there weren't really after credit scenes, but there were moments that if this was a Marvel movie, they would have been after credit scenes. One of them, of course, being the fact that Bizarro is now up and about, but he doesn't seem to be the same Bizarro. Like, he doesn't seem to really be like the same Bizarro that we saw from the previous season. In the sense of having like a mind of his own, he seems to be like a zombie. So basically, like kind of a zombie Bizarro, which is funny because Bizarro was already kind of like a zombie. But then there's a last shot that we see with him clenching his fist and some spikes kind of coming out of his skin. And this definitely gave me some Doomsday vibes. I'm not sure if anyone else got that feeling, but in a way, if it turns out that's where they're going with this story, it will be kind of interesting to see everything kind of come full circle. What do I mean by this, you may wonder? Well, in the very first episode of season 2 of Superman and Lois, the first time we're introduced to Bizarro, it was kind of a red herring because they show him basically at the center of like the mines in Smallville, breaking his way out in the suit that looks very similar to the suit that Doomsday wore in his very first appearance, leaving like all of us as fans to believe that this was supposed to be Doomsday. On top of that, one of the writers of the show, I remember, was tweeting about this, saying that fans will be able to see exactly where we're going with our main villain from the very first episode he appears. And when he appears to be Doomsday, making us believe that that's the direction they're going with, only for it to turn out to be Bizarro. So now it seems like Bizarro is turning into Doomsday, making that tweet actually make a lot more sense now. Like, he was actually possibly planned to be Doomsday this entire time, which I believe that was a prediction I made back in season 2, but I thought it was going to happen back in season 2. I didn't expect them to wait until season 3 to actually, go in this direction with Doomsday, if that's what they're doing, which I very much think that is what they're doing. So that is one of the first teasers that we got going into this next episode. The other really big thing, of course, is Lex Luthor. Now, this wasn't in the episode like I kind of implied. This is actually a trailer for the next episode, but it does seem like they're kind of taking a Supergirl approach to Lex Luthor's first appearance, which is that the very first time Lex Luthor appeared in Supergirl, it was like he had a majority of the episode to himself to establish like his whole like history with Superman, his whole history with Supergirl's world, basically. So I'm wondering if that's what they're going to be doing with this version of Lex Luthor. Now there's only 2 episodes left, and we're only going to be getting him for the first time in the next episode. So it's really hard to say, you know, how much they're able to cover within that episode. But I am really excited to see, man, I totally forgot the actor's name, so I'm just going to call him Abraham from The Walking Dead. I am really excited to see Abraham's take on the character of Lex Luthor, and it seems like they're definitely going for a very different approach than what we're normally used to in modern Superman media. It kind of feels like they're going for a little bit more of an old school, like gangster, like mob kind of approach with Lex Luthor, which used to be what he was in like the old comic books. And I believe even in the Christopher Reeve Superman, he was like a land shark, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since I've seen those Superman movies. I should probably rewatch them at some point, but regardless, that seems to be the direction that they're going with, rather than the evil scientific genius. So either way they go with his character, I'm really looking forward to it. This was, again, such a really solid episode, and in a way definitely kind of felt like AC's finale with only 2 episodes left, though. I am really excited to see if they go in the directions that I think they're going to, if we're going to be getting Lex Luthor and Doomsday in the next 2 episodes. And if that is the case, you know, we all know that Superman and Lois, there's a good chance we won't be getting a season 4, which is too bad, which is just really, really sad. But, that being said, if we get Doomsday, and if they do a good job with Lex Luthor in the next episode, I'm honestly okay with this being the last season, but we'll have to wait and see. Overall, guys, this was another fantastic episode, but of course, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know your thoughts on the episode in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.